All right, we're going to go into part 2 here, guys.
Benzo's on now.
Hey, Benzo's here. It's officially a Nerd Rap podcast. Okay.
Our number one fan.
Number one fan. Okay, I'll intro this one here. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're kind of doing a part 2 here with Sam Hannes. We have a lot more to talk about. But just before we get into that, we're doing these podcasts here. We're trying to get more folks that we want to talk to on the cast. If you have any suggestions for us out there, or if you want to ask us questions during these casts, if you're seeing this retroactively after we've done the live feed, come talk to us while we're doing them. We usually post a live stream that's on while we're doing a batch recordings, and it gives you a chance to give your own opinions about some stuff. Outside of that, we've been chatting about like how we all kind of met, where Sam's come from, and kind of based on our previous podcast, just kind of nerding out about making videos, film. That's the whole purpose of this thing here. So Sam Hannes here. Say hi again.
Hello.
And let's just kind of get right back into it. Unless you want to add anything, Sean or Sam or anything like that.
No, yeah, we can just pick up right where we left off.
Right where we left off. So we've been talking about the growth into the TV production, doing some creative stuff, working with cats back home. Now, where's your trajectory now at this point? We're still in Minnesota in the timeline, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
In college, which again, I can't stress enough how awesome technical colleges are, especially for video production. If you just want to get into it, especially now with the equipment so much more updated at this point, I would assume in most colleges.
I mean, I've been to a couple of them where it's like, we got like 2002, XL2s or something like that.
We had XL1s.
XL1s?
We
I had a GL1.
We were working with JVC 110s. Yeah. Those were the big shoulder mount ones.
Have you ever heard of SD?
Yeah.
I'm kind of sad I missed all of that because I came in when like Sony Handycams were like the
last on that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I still actually have the VHS camera that my parents used to shoot home videos on. You have to hold the record button down and put another lens from the case in front of it to be in focus, but it still works.
Wow. I still have my original cameras too, like from the first days,
Right?
I still got them.
It's like
Two of them.
If we ever get like a studio or a shared studio or something like that, I would have like a case of all these old pieces of gear.
Like trophies.
Yeah, they're like, oh, is that like some kind of like kick-ass like RE? No, that's a shoulder camera you'd get in the like the catalog for Kmart, like our special of like 1989 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean, jealous?
Yeah, a little bit. I missed this whole
Of
era.
1992. Yeah.
Give it another 20 years, people are gonna be like, that was a terrible time.
I also didn't get into filmmaking until 2010 was my senior year, so that was the first time I like really started shooting. So I missed a lot of the VHS era and never even actually really watched movies until high school. So
it's got to even know what a movie was for the last week.
My second tattoo is VCR buttons.
Yeah, that's
play, pause, stop, record. An homage to my beginnings.
See,
across the knuckles.
Oh my god, that's great.
That's I do, right?
That's awesome.
Just like doing this, like rewinding, and then hitting play, and then beep, beep, beep. Like if you're just getting in street fights, like the rest of like production houses. You know what it is out there.
One of my fists in your face.
You gotta look out. These production teams are crazy. You come across them in the streets, you're gonna have to fight. Like cameras on your shoulder or some kind of Anchorman. All right. Discourse there or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to that. Where do we go? Where do we come from? Sam, get us back onto the train there.
College was cool. They put us in front of some real corporate clients. We did like safety videos for Centerpoint Energy, which is kind of like XL Energy.
Cool.
So they gave us like real world opportunities, which was super cool. Anyway, college wraps up, super fun. I was about to move to Colorado. I came out here because just a good friend of mine went to school at CSU. I came out to visit a few times, and like most people, totally hooked. Leaving the Midwest, one of the many Midwest transplants.
Oh, yeah.
I came like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, I got nothing to lose. I'm graduating college this summer. Let's come out. So.
And all 3 of us are transplants at this point, too.
Yep.
So, don't be afraid to travel.
Yeah.
Actually, it's just getting out of that hometown and going somewhere that's you can kind of grow a new growth. If you.
Yeah. And so I guess back in college, some really awesome people in some of my classes facilitated being a part of 24-hour film races, 48-hour film races, and also just doing short films that they just were spearheading to do. And so I would jump on any crew I could just because just being on set is so much fun.
Yeah.
So I would just jump on anything I could. And again, still not really knowing how to turn it into a career because I didn't own any equipment. Sure, we had the college access stuff, the public access station equipment too, but it wasn't like the greatest. And I remember a couple of moments, whatever, guy I was dating in high school, his mom said something to me like, that's not a career. Like, you'll never make anything of this. And then even one of my own aunts, she worked at the local grocery store, knew I was moving, and she was ringing my groceries up. And I was like, she was like, oh, you're moving to Colorado? You're going to go get a real job? And I was like,
ooh. Shots fired.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, shots fired.
Jeez.
All right.
And that was a different mindset. What time? This was like 2010?
Summer of 2010.
There you go.
I think the 5D Mark IIs came out in 2008, which I just didn't have access to, and no one really had them quite yet, or anyone that I knew.
Yeah.
Well, also too is in a time period on a larger spectrum. I don't think Instagram even existed yet.
Nope.
YouTube had barely been around, and so a lot of people were.
YouTube started in 2008. I think.
Yeah, 2008.
It was earlier than that, actually. It was in like 2005.
2005, but then it became.
I was using it in high school.
Yeah.
Like we used to go to each other's houses and be like, "No, I'm going to show you a YouTube video."
That's what it was. It was the G.I. Joe. That was the first viral videos I saw of the G.I. Joe videos, and we were streaming them on like a terrible computer at the TV station.
Yep.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah, we'd go find speakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the point is that during that time period, there were a lot of mindsets that this isn't a career. And I remember my teachers in high school and college kind of being like, whatever to that. And now you got a camera in your pocket. People you watch, like, I think on average, like most people watch like 75 videos a day. And it's like looking back then, being like, this isn't a career. I'm like, you were kind of right, but
maybe not at the time.
Maybe not at the time, but like the career is
now we're like 10 years ahead of you, haven't been doing it for so long.
Yeah, we're like learning new things, and now we're the old farts being like, oh, now we're all vertical video. Yeah, I had to hold the camera like this. I couldn't zoom.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I think there was like some kind of like video or like some kind of like stream where they were showing like someone that was born in like 2005 and someone was born like 1985, and they didn't see each other, and they just say, how do you like gesture certain things?
Yeah. Like, how do you take the phone?
It's some of this, or like, how do you take a picture? And then we're doing this and they're doing this.
Yep.
And there's a millennial delay or something that they have now that they call. So when Gen Z hits, or like younger Gen Z, at this point it's like Gen Alpha and Beta coming. Whenever they push their phone, it starts recording immediately, so they start talking immediately. But our generation, what they do is we're used to the hitting the record button and then it taking a second to kick on. So we hit record and then there's like a second delay before we speak, and like these younger kids can immediately tell that we're old because we don't start talking as soon as we hit the button. What I'm talking, it's called like a millennial. It's called like a millennial delay.
It's like a second.
Yeah, it's like a second. Like, oh my god, I can't watch this.
Oh, the ankle socks, I do it.
Yeah.
1900s.
Yeah, 1900s. Yeah, look at that hat.
It's just like,
exactly, right?
Yeah.
Hi, this guy. I can't handle these 30-second videos.
And they're calling us boomers.
Yeah, right. Grannies.
It's hilarious.
Millennial delay is a thing now. So the whole point of that was that we were doing these things before it was just in everybody's hands. And we saw the results, and you saw it too a little bit, is the transition from you had to kind of have a little bit of money to get a camera, like especially like high eights and stuff. Like the reason that all these directors from an old time like Spielberg and Cameron and all these cats were able to do it is they were able to get hold of gear at a younger age that no one was able to get a hold of. And now there's a whole generation of people that have that. It causes for a little bit of like a lot of people doing stuff, but I still think it's rewarding for anybody that's trying to get into it, because now they don't have to go through the hiccups of all the stuff we'd have to do. Like, how are you going to make a film? At that point, you just might as well be just making plays. So that's kind of where we're at in this time period.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But yeah, those comments definitely fueled like just one of those people where if you tell me no, I will like figure out a way to get what I said I was going to do. Like, that's not you're going to get a real job. That's not a real career. I'm like, oh, really? Hit me back up in a couple years.
The same generation 20 years later would look at their own job as a cashier and be like, that's not a real job.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Anyways, politics aside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I moved out to Colorado, summer of 2010, with a friend of mine. I only really knew her friends in town, which was fine. It was a good time. But I still wanted to work in production. And at the time, Craigslist was like the only place to find like random gigs. And so I was on Craigslist daily looking for video production jobs.
And we're in Colorado. You were in Colorado.
I'm in Fort Collins. I'm on Craigslist. I am finding gigs in Denver, working on like a day or two productions of like reality TV shows. Or like one time the X Factor came to Denver and I worked on that for 4 days and I had like a different job each day, which was cool. Weaseled my way into holding a camera in like the room with Simon Cowell. Like I was in like interview or
audition.
The audition. Yeah, like the second round of auditions, and I got to take their main B-roll crew around areas that I knew had like mountain views and stuff. So that was pretty fun. But there were a couple of instances on reality show teams where I got to experience like some, New York and LA, very seasoned people, but the particular ones I worked with were kind of miserable and made shooting not fun at all. Like they were just like kind of jerks. Some of them, not saying everybody from New York and LA is, but just the particular experiences were. And some of that inspired me to get my own stuff. Because I had the mindset of like, you got to start small. You start as a PA, you make your way up. And I'm like, I don't know how fast I'm going to be able to make my way up with these traveling crews coming in. And I'm just kind of like hands, which is fun to do. But I want to shoot something. And I was fortunate enough that I had some savings still from college left over. Because technical college wasn't as expensive. I had just enough to buy a 5D Mark II, my first camera really, 2 lenses, and a MacBook Pro. And so I was, boom. I didn't have any audio gear, lights, or anything, but I just had enough to like shoot footage at least. And so that was in, I think, the summer of 2011, I got my first real camera and started just shooting absolutely everything. I brought it with me everywhere. I shot everything. I would post those clips online. I would make videos of whatever I could until eventually I was able to convince somebody to pay me to do it.
Yeah.
And
how long was that process from getting the camera to getting paid for you?
Ooh, to think about that.
I mean, not necessarily like the first paycheck, but like maybe the first time someone asked you to maybe do something for a low, maybe
shoot a wedding or your photos.
Actually, so part of the Craigslist stuff, the first person I met in town that does production was Doug Usher.
Doug Usher.
He posted
Doug Usher. Locally.
He posted an ad working for his Dellenbach commercials. He does car commercials, and I met up with him and Tomas, and I think Ben Mosier was there.
Ooh, was Schneider there by chance?
Could have been. Or it was at least Tomas and Doug.
Right.
They were like doing those a lot, and so I got invited back to a couple more, which was really, really cool. And then they put me in touch with other people. I think the second person they connected me with, Tomas did, was with Nick Scheides of Wasteland Hop.
Yeah.
Who also was doing some video production.
I was wondering we were going to get to this little.
Yeah. So Tomas introduces me to Nick. Nick had a shoot somewhere in like Berthoud about some corporate video about like a farm and the milk or something. And I had my camera and he said, hey, why don't you bring it? And I said, I think at the time I had just gotten like my first like Sennheiser wireless lavalier too. So I had, and that like just having that lavalier set me apart from like getting jobs or not. Like if you have any way to get the sound.
Good audio.
And so I work with Nick. The shoot goes well. He's awesome. He's like, hey, I'm in a band and we have a show this weekend. You want to come? I don't think we can pay you, but if you want to come, it's at the Aggie. Wasteland Hop was playing, and I shot photos for them. And that's how I met them.
Well, and just as a quick side note for anybody that's paying attention out there that doesn't necessarily know the local community, can you speak about Wasteland Hop's like legacy, just briefly about here in this area?
Yeah, Wasteland Hop is a local band that started in 2010 or 11, I believe. A couple of people played music together. They found other people. It was a 6-piece band. And they're all over town too. Some of them have moved out of state, but they're still playing music today, touring Alaska sometimes and playing in town here at Foco MX and stuff.
Another echo of moving to this northern Colorado area is we do have a massive music scene, which allows us to work with a lot of cats. So but not everybody when they first get here get to hook up with a band that, in my opinion, grew to a pretty massive scale locally when they started. So that's kind of a cool hookup that you got there. Trying to find that. So where did that lead? What kind of stuff did you do with Wasteland? I know you did a lot of stuff.
Yeah, shot their show and just talked about doing a music video sometime. And I had never done a music video. And so that was my first one, was for them. And I guess that's coming into when I met you guys too.
Yeah.
So 2011, 2012, Wasteland Hop. Still working with Doug. Then the movie Wednesday came about, and then I started meeting a lot of people in the film and music scene through that movie.
Oh man, I would, as a side note, I know it might be a challenge, but I'd love to get, like, I call them the 4 horsemen of the film scene here to talk about Wednesday, because it was kind of like a
Doug, Tomas, Ben, and Andrew.
And Andrew, right?
The 4 horsemen.
Yeah, the 4 horsemen. Well, anybody out there that's paying attention doesn't know about the scene here. There was a movie that came out in about 2013 is when it was officially released. That was in my opinion, the first time that there was like that flower that came out of the dirt. And I know it was, you talk to those guys, they'll say it was a mess trying to make it, but let's be honest here, most films are when you're trying to figure it out. Yeah. But that's just like a side note of what Sam's talking about. There's a lot of legends in this area. Yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, however they feel about how it turned out, I loved it. It was so fun.
I met copies still.
I've never seen it.
I met so many people in town through that event. Yeah. And so that was like a pivotal for me, I think.
Even some of the cats you still work with today are on the cover of the case and stuff.
Yeah, like Susanna. I love Suze. We had that relationship turned into short films, comedy, and just being really good friends too. So super grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's someone else we could bring on too, because she's had experience.
She'd be a great. Yeah, another great guest.
Well, we're slowing down just for a moment here. Do we have anything going on in the chat?
Oh, no, I was just...
cool.
I was just looking at levels and...
Yeah, Beanzo, you are late. Oh, that was like probably 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I was like when we started this.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I'm late up there.
Actually, cool. In Wednesday, Doug had an unfortunate medical incident, and he had kidney stones.
Oh.
And so he wasn't able to show up for a day or two or for a small period of time. And he tapped me and my 5D Mark II to shoot a couple of scenes. And that was kind of some of my first narrative intentional shooting for this film.
And I've seen them. I haven't seen the movie in a couple of years, but what scene do you remember shooting specifically from? Just out of curiosity.
It was up at Horsetooth, and it was supposed to be like a day for night shot.
Yeah.
Shooting in high noon, blaring sun, and then I didn't edit it, but they took the lights out and make it look blue. But they were looking at a fire in the mountains, which ironic. And then later there was fire.
I was literally
Yeah, but it was with Wild Rose and White Owl.
Yeah,
were the 2 people of the scene.
They're real names.
Yeah, real names. Yeah, and White Owl and they're still around too. We got legendary people in this town too.
Yeah,
and I feel bad not watching. I didn't know that you had something to do with that.
Yeah, there's music in it. It's hilarious. I like it. I think it's great.
I think that we locally should do our own almost Rocky Horror Picture Show to it, where we just have a bunch of things. We just do once a year. We all come together for this thing, because at the time I'm pretty sure it was almost anybody they could find that knew anything about video was helping with it. Because I feel like at that time period, years later, every time I talk to somebody, they're like, "Oh, I help with Wednesday. And I'm like, "Man, what is this Wednesday?" And then Ben Moser handed me a copy because he had a box full of. Yep. So here you go, and I still have
my copy too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just some local cool stuff going on. So you're shooting stuff like that. So when do I get to push towards the V song stuff?
Let's talk. Then that's getting us close to where we met.
Yes, exactly.
And as you mentioned on the previous about how we met, Craigslist, we both answered an ad to be in a music video. Because I was at that point always behind the camera, and I'm like, yeah, it would be fun to not be. I would be in it. And I actually helped them find that location. They said what they were kind of looking for. They said, we don't know where we're going to be yet, but we're trying to find something like this. And I had some good friends in Boulder living at the time, kind of on a dirt road at this farm. It was literally a farm. And there was an abandoned whole just property, couple acres with like big hay bales and an abandoned like shed building thing. And that ended up, they were like, cool, can we just go there? Like, yeah, it's a sleepy road. You can park in my friend's driveway, and that's where we shot it. And
that's why I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I found the location.
And
then that's how I met Sean and Barrett. We were both in it. And it was
which video was this again?
It's called Mass City Shuffle by Jim Hurley. He's a local musician. Yeah,
that's right.
And he's still, I think still in Boulder and still doing cool music stuff.
Band called August or Tusk, and
oh really?
I feel like they've switched back and forth.
They might have. You know how it goes around here. Like, give it like 5 years, there's another super group that forms, and we'll figure out what bands they're in.
Everyone's in each other's bands.
You're like, wait, isn't that? I knew that guy. Like,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So well, making videos and stuff like that. So you got these locations. Okay. So what happens after this? Like,
so we meet Sean and Barrett. We discover we live really close to each other, and we say, oh, if you ever need help on a shoot, and vice versa. And then we started doing that. And then the first time I met you was that a Barrett thing? It was on that bus. It was like
the Magic Bus Tour.
Visit Fort Collins, kind of like brewery tour type of thing.
So side note on that too, because I do remember the first time I met you, I had short hair. That was the first kind of thing that we got. Barrett had got it. And we brought all our homies on, and we were like drinking and like filming the stuff that we were doing.
We were like the woo girls on the bus.
Right?
Woo,
there was a few people like Goldie was even there. There was a few like some people that are doing. Yeah, Goldie was on there. So the Goldie might be something to bring on. He's somebody that could talk for sure.
Totally.
About that stuff. Us kind of growing in that world. I remember it so well. I remember the shoot because it was one of the first things I was like, oh my God, this is happening. And I even brought my buddy Mitch on. Yeah, we did. Yeah, right.
I don't think we made I don't think it paid us at all.
No, I think we just got paid in beer.
Awesome.
Yeah. We just got drunk for the day or something like that.
Yeah, they paid us in beer.
Right.
That's what they did.
But so right now, as a side note, because we're talking about Ben and Wednesday, and we talked about the lyric last time, which you know all about the lyric. The Magic Bus Tour bus is now parked in the back as a green room for bands that play outside.
Yeah.
So like the thing about the bus though is it's got all this like really intense painting from this local famous painter that I can never remember his name.
Jerry something.
Yeah, and that'd be cool. I'd love to get some of these local artists like that on board. Anyways, it's back there. It's still part of the scene, even though it's dead. It's now just this. We'd used it to shoot as our green room for a shoot we did out there last 2 years ago. So
Thin Yellow Line.
Yeah.
Thin Yellow Line.
I love it.
So yeah, there's all of us just like history just kind of goes like this here. So anyway, Sam.
Did someone say something about Wednesday?
Yeah, did they?
Oh yeah, Beanza gave us another $2.
Beanza?
Super chat.
Yeah, man. These are like paid casts these days.
Single-handedly,
Yeah, funding us for this. Yeah, right.
But yeah, I guess he wants a copy of Wednesday, so we'll.
Oh, sweet. Well, I bet you I could probably talk to Ben, and next time I got
I need one too.
Well,
there's some floating around.
I could also do something really illegal and upload it on a computer and
to our YouTube channel.
It's got to be on the internet somewhere, right? I don't know. Ben's probably like, or Doug's got it somewhere. Everyone's jaded a little bit, so we'll have to like poke them a little bit for it, So yeah. So anyways, Wednesday, moving, on with that. The Magic Bus Tour is when we all kind of met.
Yeah.
So what was our next step or your next step in this whole like growth?
Yeah. I'm still finding random jobs here and there. And through Barrett, he lived in South Korea for a couple years. And he was involved with a company that made educational language learning films for this education company.
Yeah.
And it was like, when you take Spanish class and you have to watch a video, they're really slow, basic conversations. Like, I'm going to the library. Which direction is it? Like really basic conversation. And so Barrett moves back to Colorado. He says that the company wanted to shoot in the United States because they were shooting in South Korea. And then I think in like New Zealand too.
Yeah, that's right.
But they wanted to film, since they're teaching children to speak English, they wanted just all American kids with like American accents.
Yeah.
So they wanted to keep going and filming in the United States. And so Barrett brings that team to Colorado, and he hit me up and he said, hey, we're holding interviews for people to potentially be on the crew to shoot some of these. The way he described it was, he's like, it's basically short videos based around one word or a phrase.
Right.
And I'm like, that sounds
some bit of grammar. Or,
we like for children. It's like, okay, like not my first choice, but like, it's a job though, you said, but it pays. Like I can get paid to use my camera. Like, okay.
Well, quick note as a side note, if you haven't seen any of the episodes, Barrett is part of In the Shed, which is a company that Sean, Barrett, Shad, and I are part of years ago. Look back at some of we'll probably have a whole cast about that. But anyways, just want to give a little history on Barrett.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the time I was working super part-time in Denver for this fireplace company. I was basically shooting product videos of these little fireplaces. And he gave me a date, and it was somewhere in like Thornton, I think. So I was on my way back to Fort Collins, and he said, hey, come in for an interview. And I remember approaching the exit thinking, I don't want to do that. That sounds kind of, I don't know if I want to do that. And I was like 1 mile away, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to go home, and just kind of bail on it. But then whatever, I just like turned my blank around, and I was like, I'm going to check this out. And it was I showed up. It was like one of those apartments. They were probably renting it, like a furnished apartment kind of thing. And they were holding these interviews in like the conference room you can rent out in one of those places. Mm-hmm. And it was this guy, Joe, Sonny, and then Barrett on one side of the table. And then I was sitting on the other side. And they were like grilling me with questions about more like social aspects of a job. And yeah, that's all I remember. I told you earlier that they were like, how do you deal with if you're making a video and your boss hates it and is really hard to work with and they're yelling at you?
You're like, is the boss a jerk?
I was like,
aren't you guys the boss?
Well, no, I guess they were meaning like they were like
these songs.
They can be really tough clients. And I didn't have a ton of experience with doing something really consistent. I'd always just kind of done one-off small projects. And I guess whatever I said, like, passed the test. I was like, I mean, there's always a way to find a solution and you'll figure it out. And I also fairly confident that I wouldn't run into that issue. And they were like, okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then they had me do like a test shoot that day. Or actually, no, an interview. Okay, nice to meet you. Thanks, bye. And then they called me back and said, we want to do like a test shoot with some kids because we're filming with children ages between like 10 and 12 was kind of the sweet spot. And so at that same apartment complex, there was a park. And so they kind of stood over my shoulder, gave me one of their cameras and said, here's a little script. It's like a 1-page, really basic dialogue. And they kind of just like observed me how I would shoot it and direct the kids. And I guess I passed the test. They liked how I worked with the kids. Probably helps that I'm about their height, about 5'2". And
on a good day.
Yes. So they said, hey, you got the job. It's going to be like full time. Are you available for that? And I was for the summer. And it was like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They gave us an assignment to shoot like 10 to 15 of these short videos per day.
Per day.
Because they said that they were like a year behind on this content. Like
that's when you bring us in, baby.
Yeah, they were behind. And so I was the director, but I was also shooting, and I decided myself to edit myself too. So I'd shoot all day. They had a bunch of kids that we'd found to work with consistently, like 10 to 15 to 20 different children for different scenarios, like in a kitchen talking about healthy food or just outside at the park, which is these really basic conversations. And did that for a couple months. It was really hard, obviously. So there's a lot of like creativity and coordinating, like how many of these scripts can we do in this one room? Like pick a corner.
Or the corner, like the rotation of the house.
Micro locations, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so you'd pick one house, shoot in the backyard, the front yard, the street.
The roof.
The garage, a bedroom, the kitchen. Like as many as you could.
Inside, outside.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, too, is there's a lot of other restrictions, which we'll probably get to here in a second.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess we might as well talk about it. So South Koreans, like you said, are really kind of just beauty based. They really like just
perfection.
Perfection. They want perfection in skin tones and hair. And yeah, they didn't want any of the kids to have braces or like blemishes of any kind. They wanted them to like look clean and really put together. Which in one way, it's like, yeah, you kind of want to have a cleaned up look, but they were like, send you back. Like, that kid has a zit.
You got to reshoot or like figure out how to melt his face.
Spent so much time with figuring out how to like track and remove.
And sometimes it comes down to with like the kids, you only have who you have, and if they're good, it's like shoot, but they don't look the part.
Yeah.
But also too is if they were really good, you wanted to use them in a lot of skits, and they'd tell you like you got to use a different child. And you're like, they're like, but they're so good.
Yeah.
Can we shoot at least 500 videos with them, please?
Yeah.
Like, no, like 10 maybe. You're like,
yeah. So that was really crazy. Just not only trying to hit those marks of 10 to 15 of these per day, but finding the right kids who also had to speak so clearly.
Very, very good speak. Good speak.
Memorize lines. Like there's small lines, but
good words.
It'd be like 3 or 4 words at a time because the turns of phrase, that whole program was level 2 through 12 in it was like a 4-year program. So level 2, it would be only 3 sentences at a time or 3 words at a time rather.
Yeah. And they're like what 1 through 16 is that you said it was?
Yeah, it was like 2 through 14 or something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty intense, and that's where we were like in different parts of the world really shooting these things, but we were kind of working on the same project.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that you'd been working on it for a while, and then we ended up getting brought in to kind of wrap up some of it too.
Yeah.
So we got on the tail end, and we had a workload. So you had already been doing it for a while and being like...
I was doing shorts all summer, and then one day, one of the main guys from Australia who was working in Seoul, South Korea, flew out to the U.S. to kind of also observe how those 2 guys, Joe and Sonny, were doing their thing, or just coming to check in on like the America project.
Yeah.
And we were split into 2 groups, and like Sonny's an awesome filmmaker, but this other guy was apparently not hitting the mark of the deliveries, and then kind of asking for more funding. And they're like, what? Well, and then they were like looking at the 2 crews, my crew and his crew, and they're like, well, has no problem hitting these marks at the same budget. So what's the problem here?
Right.
And so one day, Aaron Jolly, who is awesome, we had to go to a location. We shot most of the shorts in Fort Collins, but one day we had to go all the way to Parker, like an 1.5-hour, 2-hour drive.
Yep.
And Aaron's like, hop in my car. Like, I want to have a conversation with you. And he's like, basically like, you're hitting the marks. Awesome. We like the way you work with the kids. The kids like working with you. And then Joe and Sonny are just like 2 adult men. So I can see how maybe like it's just a different dynamic working with children.
Yeah.
And I'm a female.
That could be definitely a hangout.
And shorter and maybe a little more playful in a way.
Like an older sister instead of like 2 dads.
Yeah.
That are like in charge of the school.
Yeah. Because it's not like they were bad, but it's just a little bit of a different dynamic working with children.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're hitting the mark and they're not. And we have to go. And there's a bigger aspect of this project that needs to get done, and I think that we want to hand you the reins. And I was like 24 at the time, and they gave me a number for the budget for like the rest of the year and the amount of work that it was going to be. They're like, can you handle this? And I'm like, I don't know. But instead of saying I don't know, I said, yeah, sure. And that was Junior Reporter. So instead of just random kids, whoever you could get for these shorts, Junior Reporter is a written story about at least two kids that you follow, and there's a story arc that you have to write. And I said yes and convinced them to give us this budget to stay here in Colorado, because I knew I had some friends who had kids who were, one, actors, they were in plays and stuff, and they were in the perfect age range. And then the next was, are you willing to be a part of this? And so we did Junior Reporter USA, like there were 5 minutes each. 5 times, gosh, like 40 or 50 of these like units. And so it was months of work. And I went up to, they lived in like the Vail Valley area in Avon. And so I moved up there and lived in their basement with my friends and their kids. And so every day they'd get home from school, and I had the set up, and I had all the stuff ready to go. And we were the second they got home from school, we had like snacks laid out, boom, boom, boom. And we shot for months at a time. And then, I mean, just from there, like 10 to 12-year-olds were like my friends for the next year. Like those were my coworkers.
Well, see, and just, it sounds like to me that without even realizing it fully, that you were a natural at doing what you were doing, to the point that it was And it was like echoing throughout the rest of the other crews that happened to do this.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah, totally unintentional. And when they handed the project over, a lot of it needed to be written. It's not like they handed us to adapt. They would just give us the like the scope of that unit. Like, here are the 10 vocab words. It's all those videos, by the way, were listening content.
Yeah.
Kids learning English, and then at the end of their unit, they'd watch this video and like listen for the words and the turns of phrase that they were learning. And so I was able to hire one of my best friends from high school, who we used to make videos together when we were teenagers, to write the scripts, because she's just as really good with grammar and writing. And we also had a fairly silly G-rated sense of humor. So I'm like, my friend Ashley Whalen, she would be perfect to write these.
Well, here, so I want to do a part 3 now because
we could go forever about this.
But we've gotten to the point now where we're bringing on new characters and stuff like that, and I think it'd be a good time to like give us a little cliffhanger for the next episode.
All right.
We got Ashley Whalen coming in, who I remember you working with on some of the own stuff in the future for like Weekend Warriors, which I would like to get into because you guys did some really hilarious stuff together. But yeah, we're out here. We're talking to Sam Hannes. We're trying to do more of these. If you got anybody who wants to be on the cast, please come and talk to us. Talk to us in chat. We do these lives every time that we try to post these. I do like batch recordings. So tune in to us, and thanks for joining us on the Nerd Rat Rat's Nest.
Rat's Nest, yeah.
And we'll see you guys here shortly. All right, I guess.
See ya.
And cut here.
Right.
Just end it every time. Like
yeah. I remember because I watched that one the other day, and I was like, yeah, that is a pretty good day.